In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Hello dear viewers, welcome to Marjaeyat Horizon and thank you for joining us. Just stay with us watching news, reports and meetings, all regarding the Grand Jurist Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Hussein El-Shirazi. Guidance is the first part of our program. I invite you to watch.
در روایت وارد شده است اغلق بابک.
According to our narration, secure the gates of your heart, for Satan cannot open a closed gate. Those to whom Satan attacks and entices them to abandon the good deeds and to do evil acts. According to narration, if they secure their gates, Satan doesn't hold a key to open, or he doesn't have the power to break the gates. However, they leave their gates ajar, and Satan enters. Therefore, if humans keep shut their gates to Satan, it can never penetrate their heart. Satan cannot entice you into committing sins. Lying, for instance, even though it is a small lie, is considered to be opening the gates for Satan. It enters and later and whispers to you, and you will tell a bigger lie. And finally, it tempts you to commit the bigger sins. When you first backbite a person, it seems rather small sin. This is considered to be opening the gate for Satan. Once you open the gate, it enters and leads you to commit much bigger sins. When people slightly wrong each other, when a woman wrongs her mother-in-law, sister-in-law, daughter-in-law, or any other person around her, or a man wrongs his brother, sister, wife, or other people around him, neighbors to each other, this is considered to be opening the gate for Satan. And Satan enters through the smallest openings, and then it tempts you to commit bigger sins, and it keeps tempting you until all your life is inflected with sins and wrongdoings. As you know, no wrongdoer has ever been born a wrongdoer. No usurer has been born a usurer. And also no one has ever intended to wrong other people from the day he was born. It all starts with the smallest, conscious or unconscious sins or mistakes, and that is what is considered to be opening the gate for Satan. When Satan enters, it unites with the evil prompting self inside us. And finally, they create evil people such as Sham, Joda, al-Fadl, Sananan ibn Anas, Abdurrahman ibn Muljam, who are infamous for their atrocities. Now you might ask, what should be done if, for instance, we make a mistake and open the gates? In such cases, first you must throw Satan out of your hearts and then secure its gates once more. The means with which one can throw Satan, asking Allah for his forgiveness and securing the gate of your heart, is done by self-examination every day. All the Imams, including Imam Ali, Imam Sadiq, Imam Kazam, and Imam Rida, peace be upon them, you must do self-examination every day until you secure the gates of your heart in order not to let Satan in. We are now in the month of Shawwal, and the month of Ramadan has just finished. Surely all of you have had some success in fasting, prayers, acquiring good manners, visiting your relatives, and helping and feeding the poor. Therefore, everyone has achieved some of the blessings of the month of Ramadan. Our task now is to try to keep these blessings safe and continue doing what we did in the month of Ramadan, and through self-examination and asking Allah for forgiveness, block the road to our hearts for Satan, so as to achieve felicity in this world and hereafter more than ever.
Simultaneously, with the auspicious birthday anniversary of Imam Reza, peace be upon him, and following the guidelines of Ayatollah Shirazi on helping the needy, the charity institution of Rasul Azam in the holy city of Kademia distributed food parcels and help packages among the poor. In this charity program, dozens of fatherless families and orphans received these packages. Iraqi Shias are attacked once again as two cars exploded in Karada and Kademia neighborhood. Explosion in Kademia killed 11 and injured 32 as it targeted civilians in the busy shop and restaurants of the area. Also, the explosion in Karada claimed 17 lives and injured 6. Shias of Iraq have been under targeted attacks by a number of anti-Shia groups, including ISIS and Ba'athis. So far, ISIS has killed 7,000 Shia Muslims. Shia Rights Watch reports.
At least 17 people are killed in 2 car bomb explosions in Shia majority areas in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. Iraqi security and medical officials said on Tuesday that at least 11 people lost their lives after a car bomb hit an area of shops, restaurants and cafes in the northern Kademia neighborhood. The sources confirmed that at least 32 Iraqi people suffered injuries in the blast. The Iraqi officials also noted that another car bomb explosion hit Baghdad's district of Karada, killing at least 6 people and injuring 17 others. Baghdad has been repeatedly hit by bombings in the past 2 weeks. Iraqi officials said on August 13th that an explosion struck a police checkpoint in the town of Yusufiya, 20 kilometers south of Baghdad, killing at least 11 people. Another blast hit an area of the volatile town of Latakia, about 30 kilometers south of Baghdad, killing at least 2 soldiers. Such acts of violence and terror are usually blamed by Iraqi officials on the ISIL terrorists who have been wreaking havoc across Iraq in recent months. Iraqi officials say former Ba'athists are aiding the ISIL and carrying out terrorist attacks. The ISIL terrorists have committed heinous crimes and threatened all communities, including Shias, Sunnis, Kurds, Christians, and Yazidi Kurds during their advances in Iraq. Senior Iraqi officials have blamed Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and some Persian Gulf Arab states for the growing terrorism in their country. The ISIL and its associated militant groups are blamed for numerous sacrilegious acts. The terrorist groups have links with Saudi intelligence and are believed to be indirectly supported by the Israeli regime.
The Treasury Department sanctioned 3 Kuwait-based financiers on Wednesday for allegedly funding extremist groups in Syria and Iraq. The Treasury Department's counter-terrorism arm has grown increasingly vocal in recent months about Kuwait's alleged role in raising funds for such groups, specifically those known as the Al-Nusra Front and the Islamic State, through social media and other financing channels.
The Kuwaiti government must explain its involvement in founding terror. The lawyer of Shafi al-Azmi claims he has documents that prove his client's actions were done under knowledge and approval of Kuwaiti government. Department of the Treasury imposed sanctions on al-Azmi under Executive Order 13224 as of August 6 in 2014. Treasury.gov stated al-Azmi operates under regular social media campaigns seeking donations for Syrian fighters and is one of the most active Kuwaiti fundraisers for ANF. In July 2014, he publicly admitted that he collected money under the auspices of charity and delivered the funds in person to ANF. Al-Azmi also acknowledged purchasing and smuggling arms on behalf of ANF. Al-Azmi is responsible for the slaughter of many Shia families in Syria by founding and encouraging anti-Shiism. All these actions have implied that he supports slaughtering captured Shiite fighters, women and children in Syria, and had his preacher's license suspended in August for radical invective on Syria and Egypt. Mohammed bin Nasser, the lawyer of Shafi al-Azmi, claimed his client operated under the full knowledge of the government. His claim came after the arrest of his client by the Kuwaiti authorities. If bin Nasser publicized his claim, the Kuwaiti must explain his support for terrorist groups through al-Azmi and others like him. As SRW has always emphasized, all clerics in Islamic nations are employees of their governments, and the local authorities must be held responsible when such employees call for slaughter of menace or encourage and founding terrorist groups. The case of al-Azmi is yet another example and must be taken seriously. All clerics who call for hatred are representatives of their governments, and therefore Kuwait shares the same crime as al-Azmi and must be punished in International Human Rights Court.
Ever since Bahrainis rose against the government in 2011, emboldened by the Arab Spring to demand social and judicial reforms be implemented, the state has targeted the Shia community, using repression and oppression to silence calls for freedom and social justice. threatened by Bahrain's Shia majority. The ruling family, who are themselves Sunni Muslims, have transported their fear of change onto the people, keen to ignite anti-Shia sentiment, as they believe only this strategy will allow them to maintain their grip on power.
What the regime has failed to understand is that activists are not seeking to use their faith as a springboard for political advancement. What they have tirelessly campaigned for, however, is complete social inclusion beyond race, political affiliation, or faith. Home to an estimated 361,696 Shia Muslims, which represents over 85% of Bahrain's total population, the state simply cannot continue to hold an entire people under such shackles of fear. Persecuted by the security forces, vilified by the media, Bahrain's Shia community is awaiting vindication. The human rights group Shia Rights Watch, based in Washington, has called on the international community and all GCC countries to immediately intervene in Bahrain by demanding that Al Khalifa be made to answer to allegations of torture and human rights abuses. SRW said in a statement, Bahrain Shia community has been made to live in fear since 2011. How many people will have to die before the world chooses to take a stand against anti-Shiism? Opposition leaders are eager for comprehensive and meaningful dialogue with the government. We appreciate the UN efforts to achieve international peace and security and respect for human rights. We are particularly grateful for UN's willingness to find a solution for the Bahraini crisis since its eruption in 2011. Today, the authorities are still unwilling to solve the political crisis. The authorities' misuse of power is threatening the majority of citizens on political and sectarian grounds. We fear that Bahrain may turn into a regional sectarian battleground due to the authorities' practice of religious and political persecution wrapped in security agreements. Determined to shed light on the real crisis, which has plagued Bahrain since 2011, when activists first confronted the regime by calling for reforms, opposition leaders shed light on the issue of anti-Shiism, Bahrain's own dirty little secret. They noted in a letter, the Bahraini Authority has imported security forces on a sectarian basis to repress the citizens demanding democratic transition. This has produced regional polarization through categorizing victims on each side by their sect. The systematic religious persecution practiced against Shia citizens and non-Shia dissidents demanding reform is a serious threat to the regional peace and security and fuels sectarian conflict. Activists in Bahrain are said to be disappointed and somewhat bewildered that the international community has so far not taken any real action or even condemned the government for its barbaric methods against its own people. Regardless, the opposition has vowed to persevere in their calls for structural change regardless of the dangers. This is in keeping with their desire to see a responsive and vibrant democratic state where all individuals' inherent human rights are respected. Maryam Al-Khawaja, a Bahraini human rights defender, the daughter of the prominent Bahraini human rights defender Abul Hadi Al-Khawaja, and the head of the Foreign Relations Office and Vice President for the Bahraini Center for Human Rights and the acting president of the Bahraini Center for Human Rights since Nabila Rajab was arrested, was detained at Bahrain International Airport on August 13th. Bahrain government arrested Maryam for leading a campaign called Wanted for Justice and also insulting the king. Unlike Saudi government that hides its human rights violations, arrests, founding terror, and so on by generous donations and meaningless laws and statements, Bahraini government uses its international immunity and world silence to publicize its violations towards Shia Muslims. This government arrested and detailed a young woman whose human rights leadership has threatened Bahrain and changed international image of this country. Arresting such well-known human rights defender and charging her for her campaign suggests Bahrain government is proudly accepting its violations towards Shia majority of the country and has no reason to hide under humanitarian aids that Saudi king is. It would be interesting to see the reaction of international communities and Obama administration have given this alley of freedom to the violation by friendship and silence. Such arrests can play an important role in sifting many who claim respect of human dignity, American values, or human rights.
And now we're going to watch the most important news all around the world regarding Ayatollah Shirazi in the next part of our program, News in Brief.
New school year started in Zainabia Seminary School. The registration of seminary students in the new school year has started at Zainabia Seminary School in Damascus, Syria. This school is supported by the Office of Ayatollah Shirazi, and the seminary students can proceed their education in 3 levels of beginner, advanced, and Kharij Fiqh course in this school. Marjaeyat 2, 3, and 4 streaming. All programs of Marjaeyat Global Network will be broadcast worldwide on Marjaeyat 2, 3, 4 in different languages. Marjaeyat 2 will be streamed on Nilesat covering Middle East and North Africa. Marjaeyat 3 will be on Galaxy Satellite covering North America, and Marjaeyat 4 will be on Optus covering Australia. Activities of Rasul Akram Charity Institution in Basra. The director and members of the Culture and Charity Institution of Rasul Akram in Basra attended at the Office of Information of the city and met the head of Public Relations Office of this institution. During this meeting, both sides exchanged opinions on social and security issues of Basra and emphasized on more coordination for running these programs on different occasions. Members of High Committee of Preaching meet Basra Defense Operational Commander. A number of members of High Committee of Preaching in the city of Basra attended at the Defense Operational Headquarters of the city and discussed different issues with its Commander-in-Chief while visiting the place. During this meeting, both sides exchanged opinions on security issues of Basra and stressed on the importance of unity and solidarity of all Iraqis in Iraq's undergoing crisis for stabilizing peace and security. The Operational Commander of Basra appreciated the notifications and guidelines of the grand juries, El-Shirazi. Activities of Biha Charity Institution at Imam Rida birthday. Simultaneously with the auspicious birthday anniversary of Imam Rida, peace be upon him, and following the guidelines of El-Shirazi on helping the needy, the Charity Institution of Biha distributed help packages among the needy and poor families. In this charity program, which was held at the beginning of the school year, hundreds of orphans and poor children received financial aids and stationaries.
Since the founding of the country, Saudi Arabia has always battled with the idea of free speech. The Al Saud family, the family that has ruled the country for generations, has succeeded in enforcing their monarchy through a skillful combination of distribution, penetration, and coercion, with the legitimating dose of ideology. Governance in Saudi Arabia is not representative, not accountable, and does not protect rights for citizens. Basic civil and political rights are absent. Basic crimes throughout history have been seen, including strikes, public criticism, and revolt. In fact, revolt is how the country was taken by Al Saud dynasty. Saudi Arabia has always had firm grasp on their citizens when it comes to free expression. The lack of pluralism can be seen clearly even in today's time. Saudi Arabia's unrelenting assault on freedom of expression continues as the Jeddah Criminal Court tries to convict liberal activists. The court sentenced a liberal activist to 10-year imprisonment and 1,000 lashes for setting up a liberal website and allegedly insulting Islam and religious authorities. Mainly, all these activists are convicted with the charges such as breaking allegiance with the king, making international organizations hostile to the kingdom, and setting up an unlicensed organization. Saudi Arabia has a long history of suppressing free expression. What is different with these cases is the long prison term imposed by the terrorism court on activists, sometimes ranging between 10 and 15 years. Fazil al-Manasif is a case in point. A human rights activist from the eastern province city of Qatif, al-Manasif received a harsh 15-year sentence from the specialized criminal court on 17 April, plus a 15-year travel ban after his prison sentence and a fine of 100,000 Saudi riyal. The charges against him included breaking allegiance with the king and being in contact with foreign news agencies in order to exaggerate news and harm the reputation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and its people. Making matters worse, new terrorism regulations promulgated by Saudi authorities in 2014 criminalize as terrorism-related offenses acts such as contact or correspondence with any group that are hostile to the kingdom, making countries, committees, or international organizations antagonistic to the kingdom, and calling, participating, promoting, or inciting sit-ins or protests. As a member of the UN Human Rights Council, Saudi Arabia has pledged to uphold the highest standards in the promotion and protection of human rights. But ongoing repression against peaceful dissidents and activists makes a mockery of this pledge and calls into question the willingness of Saudi Arabia to improve its record. With the efforts of groups of believers in Madagascar and during recent days, a mosque with the name of Lady Khadija was established in the city of Majunga in this country. After the opening of this mosque, which was established by the guidelines of the Grand Jewish Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Shirazi on expanding Islamic and religious centers across the world, the followers of Ahlul Bayt in Madagascar honored the auspicious birthday anniversary of Imam Reza, peace be upon him, by upholding gatherings.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I am Sheikh Muhammad Radi from Mahajanga in Madagascar. I studied in Tehran at Imam Al-Qaim Seminary School. At then, we were in constant contact with the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi and met him several times in his office in the holy city of Qom. After finishing our studies, and when we were back in Madagascar, the situation was not good due to social and economic sanctions and pressures. Many graduates of Imam Al-Qaim left their country and traveled to Najaf and stayed there. At then, we started our activities under the auspices of the Grand Ayatollah Shirazi until today. Madagascar is an island located in Indian Ocean in Southeast Africa. This country has a population of about 22 million people, who are 90% Christians and only 10% Muslims. Imam Al-Qaim is one of the centers run by us. It is located in Mahajanga. Another branch of the Islamic Center is located in Marjaeyat, 110 kilometers away from Mahajanga. We have active publications and translating sectors, and by now we have translated tens of books in the local language of the natives and have published them despite our weak facilities. Our activities also include reviving the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, by commemorating their birthday and martyrdom anniversaries. We have morning ceremonies of Muharram, Fatimiyya days, and Baki International Day. During the month of Muharram, we send preachers to different cities and villages. Other activities of Al-Qaim is holding book fairs. Recently, we had a book fair on birthday anniversary of Imam Mahdi in Mahajanga. This Islamic center also provides some necessary assets of life and stationaries for the Shias in Madagascar, because most of Shias in this country are poor. Iftar and sometimes pre-dawn meals are prepared during the holy month of Ramadan, and various religious courses are held during the month of Muharram. Our future plan is to open schools in other cities too, because it is what people frequently ask us to do. I hope that we can accomplish this with the help of the Shia benefactors. Thanks Allah, African Shias are studying at different universities and have reached high positions. And if being supported by an organization or a person, they travel abroad and study at France, Russia, or other African countries. Shias here in Africa have a radio channel with the name of The Call of Wisdom, which is broadcast in local language. Demands for more Shia institutions are high in all parts of the country. Al-Qaim Center in Mahajanga and Marwai hold different Islamic courses for children like beliefs, interpretation of Holy Quran, history, and so on. Those living in remote villages and faraway cities frequently ask us to hold such courses for them as well, which it needs more revenues. We often distribute papers containing speeches by the Grand Ayatollah Shirazi among the lovers of Ahlul Bayt and Shias in Africa. We suggest establishing a seminary school in Madagascar. There are some such schools, but they are run on very outmoded methods. We need a strong seminary school where all modern facilities be at hand, so that we can fulfill our responsibilities more than ever. I hope Allah favors us more than before. Thank you. Goodbye.
As anti-Shiism is growing around the world, Sudan has taken steps to oppress its Shia population. Also, Sudan closed some cultural centers in the country. Although there is no official reason given, Sudanese media speculated that the expulsion is related to government concerns that such centers promote Shia Islam in the Sunni-dominated country. SRW believes that this act of Sudanese government, if proven to be based on religious intolerance, is a clear example of Shia rights violation. Shia Muslims should be able to practice their faith and have centers for their rituals.
Ever since the death of the Prophet of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Shia have faced discrimination because they criticized the caliphs for unjust and violent acts. Shia advocated nonviolence and equal human rights for all. The caliphs, on the other hand, neglected people's basic human rights. The growth of these ideological differences led to the formation of anti-Shia extremist groups, such as the Wahhabi, Salafi, and Nasibi sects. Many Shias have lost their lives, dignity, and freedom throughout history at the hands of such groups. 11 out of the 12 Shia Imams and their companions were murdered by either anti-Shia groups or dictators. It can be therefore concluded that anti-Shiism has been a threat to Shia since the death of the Prophet Muhammad. In recent years, with the financial support of Saudi Arabia, anti-Shiism has increased dramatically throughout the world and includes the demolition of Shia shrines in Saudi Arabia, attacks on Shia homes in Bahrain, the mass killing of Shia in Pakistan, road bombs in Shia-populated areas of Syria and Iraq, targeted attacks on Shia and Alavis in Damascus, and the destruction of Shia homes in Indonesia and pressure on Shia in Malaysia to convert. Murder and forced displacement, however, are not the only manifestation of anti-Shiism. Anti-Shiism is gaining support in many places, which is a serious cause for concern. As the odious ideology continues to spread, it has infiltrated media outlets and human rights organizations which continue to ignore the plight of Shia Muslims. The most modern and disappointing example of anti-Shiism can be witnessed in the media coverage, or lack thereof, of Shia suffering. Since the Arab Spring, Shia have been threatened by extremists. Thousands have been murdered and injured. Many Shia women and children have been arrested and tortured, and historical sites have been demolished and desecrated. Yet many media outlets remain silent in the face of such inhuman acts against Shia Muslims. Since the beginning of the 2011 uprising in the Middle East, as anti-Shiism flourished in the Middle East, SRW contacted many human rights organizations to take action to stop the violence against Shia. However, no serious action has been taken. As a result, the number of murders is increasing every day in countries such as Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Syria, Pakistan, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Those injured in Syria and Bahrain have no access to medical facilities. Women and children have no security in Syria. In Saudi Arabia, Shia cannot practice their basic human rights such as freedoms of religion since they are considered second-class citizens with absolutely no freedom. In Malaysia, Shia do not have the right to practice or teach their faith in public. In Indonesia, Shia have no homes to live in after their homes were burned down by extremists. Yet, many human rights organizations remain silent and do not get involved. Shia Rights Watch is proud to be the first to introduce anti-Shiism as a new entry to dictionaries. Shia Rights Watch contacted a number of dictionaries in 2012 and asked them to add anti-Shiism to their vocabulary lists. Recently, Shia rights violations increased around the globe, and it is very important that dictionaries offer the best word to define hate crimes and discrimination towards Shia Muslims. Urban and Merriam-Webster dictionaries welcome the new terminology. SRW appreciates Urban and Merriam-Webster dictionaries for their fast response and invites all human rights organizations and media outlets to use anti-Shiism when reporting human rights violations towards Shia Muslims. SRW insists that the term anti-Shiism must be used in regards to crimes against Shia. The world is witnessing these heinous acts that are carried out in a prejudicial and systematic approach towards Shia through the world. The term anti-Shiism and its derivations offer a realistic depiction of events and their impact, and recognize the persecution that targets Shia as a group solely on the basis of their beliefs. These crimes are serious, unjust acts that threaten the lives and livelihood of Shia. These threats must be recognized and must be stopped immediately.
Following the daily meetings of the Grand Jury Ayatollah Shirazi in recent days, a number of scholars, religious, cultural, and social figures, along with different groups of youngsters and the public from all around the world, attended at Ayatollah Shirazi's central office and gave ear to the words, guidelines, and advices from the grand jurists. Thank you for being with us so far. Glance is the next part of our program, which offers you the reports on the activities of dependent centers to the Grand Jury Ayatollah Shirazi in different parts of the world.
خدمت شما عرض شود که راجع به مسئله شکلگیری مراکز دینی در کشور نروژ
We established Sayyid al-Shuhada Husseiniya by renting a small house of 450 or 500 square meters, and it is active up to now. In this year, by the grace of Allah Almighty and Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, and with the efforts of the followers of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, living in Norway, especially Afghan Shias, we managed to buy a place of 1,000 square meters at 30 million krona. And I hope Allah willing in the future, we will buy a bigger place for Sayyid al-Shuhada Husseiniya. In the Shia Islamic Center, we put a great deal of effort to present a positive view of Shias to the government and also to the Norwegian society. On the other hand, the Islamic centers also we try to build the Shia culture among our children and the youth. Also their families using the great sources we have in our narrations and the doctrine of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. In our weekly program on Thursdays, after the evening prayer, we have Kumail supplication. After that, for about 50 or 20 minutes, we have speeches about Islamic queries and also a short interpretation of Kumail supplication. On Sunday nights, there is a program for those who are just married and want to know about how to interact in the family, and we give them some lessons from the Holy Infallible's narrations on this regard. There is another program which is particularly for the youth. In these programs, along with Quran and Persian language classes, we teach them the Islamic and Shia history. In the last Ramadan, there were some teenagers who used to be reluctant to join our activities, but now they're active members of the Husseiniya, and we did it through our programs and classes, and we think that our young generation is potentially prepared for these kinds of activities, but it needs a regular program. We must spend time with them and make them interested. Athens is a gate to European countries, as all the immigrants who want to immigrate to Europe after passing Turkey, they have to come to Greece and then move to Europe. When we invest in Athens, in fact, we're investing in all Europe, because all those who attended in our programs and activities, they're going to travel to all across Europe and spread this culture there. There was an Islamic center in the past, which was very small, and because there was no preacher there and no activities were done in that place, it was about to be closed. But by the grace of Allah Almighty and the efforts of other friends, and of course guidelines of the Grand Jury Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Hussein Shirazi, may Allah prolong his life, and after the long talks we had with members and the manager of that center, they continued their activities, and now it's one of the biggest Shia centers here. One often see the Christians invite needy Muslims to attend their churches. They have to wait something about 2 hours or so and listen to preachers to get some food, milk or something like that. And among them you can see some Muslim women wearing hijab and waiting for food. After we discussed this problem with the central office of Ayatollah Shirazi, he sent Sayyid Hashim Khatami to investigate the problem, and thanks Allah, during the last Ramadan, by the efforts of our friends, we managed to serve iftar every night in this center. We're planning to hold a Quranic contest in Oslo, Norway, and in Athens, Sayyid Khatami is going to be there and manage the programs such as iftar and the rest. But in Oslo, the important plan is that we're doing our best to hold Quranic contest, and we're asking other Islamic centers to send their Quran reciters to Oslo. And Allah willing, we're trying to expand this holy program in the coming years to other cities, other European countries, also all around the world. Allah Almighty always has mercy to those who have taken step in the way of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. And as our Grand Jury Ayatollah Shirazi says, if one takes a little step in the way of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, Allah will remove big problems from his life.
That was all for this edition of Marjaeyat Horizon. For more information on our daily news regarding Marjaeyat, you can visit Shirazi.ir and the official web pages of Rasul Akram Cultural Institute on Facebook and Twitter. You can also watch the live stream at marjaeyatTV.com. Have safe and happy days. Goodbye.